Hi, everyone, and welcome to Risk Awareness Week 2024. I'm very excited that you've decided to join us at this virtual risk management event for risk managers outside of financial services. And this year, for the first time ever, we have a separate stream for risk managers in financial services as well. So I'm delighted to have you with us. If you're watching on LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube, more workshops are available at the 2024.riskawarenessweek.com. We have 47 workshops this year. And I wanted to start by sharing with you that I want to dedicate this Risk Awareness Week to the memory of David Bose, who unfortunately passed away this week. He's a dear friend and an amazing risk manager and somebody who contributed a lot to the world of risk quantification. So in preparation for today, I was rehearsing and trying to summarize the future trends in risk management into kind of a couple of buckets. And I spent yesterday evening going back and forth or on the beach in Spain, trying to kind of figure out, well, what's the most simple to understand yet powerful way to summarize everything that has been going on in the world of risk management since last year, and a lot of the different technologies and ideas and applications that other speakers will share during the Risk Awareness Week. And by the way, Risk Awareness Week, literally 5 days of workshops, non-stop. This year in the US time zone, so if you're watching from Asia or Australia, you can always watch the replay the following day. So I've decided that what excites me, and I hope you share in my excitement in risk management world today and for the foreseeable future, is two things. The first bucket, I believe most of the day-to-day mundane risk management tasks can now be partially or fully automated with AI. So this is a huge revolution, which I think will is already leading towards this huge implication for the profession. So think of the tasks that you're busy with today, risk management activities that you're doing. By the way, let's keep it interactive. Write it in the comments next to the video if you're watching on YouTube or on Risk Awareness website or on LinkedIn, and hopefully I'll see some of these comments. Just list what are some of the activities that keeps you busy most of the time, and I'll share. Maybe we already have an automation for that. So, for example, we have whenever we have a new contract and we want to identify what are the different risks associated with the contract, so we can account for these risks in the procurement procedures and the tender documentation and the contract negotiations and the terms and conditions, we have to perform risk identification. And we now have built a risk awareness AI chatbot. By the way, if you are on the risk awareness website, bottom right, I don't know which one's bottom right. Bottom right, if you click on the little umbrella, that literally pops up our most powerful AI chatbot that you can ask to help you identify risks for a specific problem, decision, contract, business plan, project, whatever you can think of. So we've already automated risk identification. If you have a policy document to write, a risk management policy or a risk appetite statement, whatever your risk management one needs are, we now have an AI bot that can write you a pretty well structured, kind of really focused on decision making policy for risk management, where you can put in the company name and some context and a little bit information, and it will create a policy for you. Model risk management. So thank you for the comment. For model risk management, I can insert the calculations. I mean, model risk management is a broad term, so maybe be a little bit specific, more specific. But I've put in calculations that I've done on different risks, and I can ask AI to now double check, find errors, find inconsistencies, and recalculate different methods. So that is a pretty good example on how we can use AI. So the point I'm trying to make, and by the way, you keep these examples coming. The point I'm trying to make is that we can now use AI to automate a lot of the day-to-day activities that risk managers are busy doing. So I think the first exercise, or the first point, the first future trend, is that most of the mundane tasks will start slowly going away, and we'll be able to automate it using either publicly available, ChatGPT, Gemini, or Copilot, or we will build purpose-built specific risk assessment tools that will either automate the quantification or automate the risk identification, or just kind of help us do the exercise. So let me just kind of show you one example quickly. Here's another model. Let me check how it looks. Okay, perfect. I mean, let me make it pretty for you. Here's another kind of example of what I'm doing at the moment. Is I'm building an automation using various instances of AI models to perform a risk assessment for a new project, new contract, or new initiative or operational choice, or new business plan, or new startup. Basically, just whatever context you give at the entry point, it then goes through like this multi-agent model where a pre-trained risk AI interviews finance AI, legal AI, procurement AI, operational AI, ESG AI, and a few other departments to identify risks relevant to that context. And the risk AI chatbot has actually been pre-trained on 20 different risk identification techniques, and based on our kind of back testing, we have identified that 5 of these risk identification techniques perform much better than the other 15. So it's a risk chatbot pre-trained on specific risk identification techniques, so it identifies a much more in-depth, practical, very real life risks, rather than kind of high-level hypothetical risks that a ChatGPT would do for you. So that's an exciting opportunity that I think is opening up to us. And this is just a kind of a hint at, I think, what the future of risk management holds, because we will be able, if not this year, next year, we will be able to automate most of the mundane risk management tasks. And by the way, it automates it kind of in a way that you would do with junior risk managers in your team anyway. So sometimes it gives out errors and you have to double check on them. Sometimes the answers are too hypothetical, too generic, too theoretical, and you really need to kind of pinpoint, keep focusing on getting more practical and pragmatic. So it's a really iterative process of trying to discover the right combination of instructions, prompts, and the background knowledge to educate the AI model to perform at the level where you would be satisfied consistently. So I think that's the first part of the future of risk management. If you haven't already, in the very near future, we will be able to automate most of the mundane risk management tasks, and hopefully you'll be able to use some of the existing products, or you'll collaborate with the IT team internally to build those automations. And I've just showed you an automation that we're building on a platform called N8N. It's one of many kind of multi-agent platforms where you can create the activities that you want automated without in-depth expert programming knowledge. So the point I'm trying to say is that this is becoming very accessible, because by no means I'm no programmer, and yes, I have a lot of IT help, but it's most of the stuff is common sense. And for example, if you tried using raw AI, the chatbot at the bottom of the each page on a Risk Awareness Week website, you'll be amazed how it outperforms most Big Four risk consultants in methodology questions, and even some of the practical implementation questions. It's far from perfect, and by the way, I keep improving and working on it. And my team, who is also watching this workshop, is using our artificial intelligence for performing day-to-day risk management tasks. So this is just the beginning, and I think we are on the verge of automating a lot of the manual handling risk management tasks. But that's just part number one. This is the first trend. Now, the second one, which is much bigger and much more important, is that I think once we automate the kind of mundane, boring, necessary tasks that have to be performed every single day, not only will be able to significantly increase the speed of risk assessments, the quality of risk assessments. Can you imagine being able to do a mini risk assessment for every single contract being signed in the company, not just the large contracts like we're doing today, or most of you are probably doing today, but every single contract can be supported by a mini risk assessment with the technology. So the second part is what I call finding a home for risk management, and I think this is less to do with AI and more to do with integrating risk analysis into decision-making, business processes, and just the core of operations. And let me try and explain this, because this is the same trend I've been talking since Risk Awareness Week 2019, and somehow this is still not quite. I don't feel we're quite there yet. So I think it's worth repeating. And I called it finding a home for risk analysis or risk management. In my mind, it's kind of the same thing. Finding a home, and this is very important stuff, because every time a company starts procuring something important, that something is associated with risks. For example, buying a large quantity of diesel. Are we buying enough? Maybe are we buying too much? Are we controlling the diesel once it's received? Is the price volatility accounted for? How do we get out of the contract if we suddenly don't need diesel and we want to switch to, I don't know, electric trucks. Every time a company engages in a work relationship with a vendor, there are a lot of risks associated with that. And that's an example of a home for risk analysis. So once the operations decide that they need something, new trucks, extra trucks, conveyor belts, different piece of equipment, more maintenance parts, more raw materials. Every time there is an operational decision, there is a lot of uncertainty, a lot of assumptions are associated with that. And analyzing that uncertainty, capturing that uncertainty, and creating the final product, which is the contract in this particular instance, that is risk adjusted and risk balanced and resilient or prepared for different risks, that's the home for risk management. So every time there's a new contract, that's your small home for a mini risk analysis. Every time the company is doing a project, there's cost forecasts, schedule forecasts, there is a purchasing list, there are conceptual designs, basic designs, there are drawings. Every single one of these documents has a lot of uncertainty associated with that. Is the design taking into account all the relevant operational risks? And, for example, are we building a plant in a way that captures the potential impact of climate change in the region? Will our pipes sustain extra heat in 20 years or so? Every time we're building a schedule, have we accounted properly for delays, logistical, rainy season, navigation windows? All of these are examples of different risks that will affect the schedule and need to be incorporated in the schedule. Are we properly accounting for inflation and escalation in the cost and budget? Have we calculated the contingency properly for both the schedule and the budget? These are all homes for risk analysis. Every time we are, for example, we're planning to receive an extra round of funding. Shall we convert the money into local currency today, 100%? Shall we convert it each month? Shall we convert 6 months? Shall we convert 3 months? Every single one of these operational decisions has a lot of uncertainty with it. And that's the home for risk analysis. For example, in accounting, in financial statements, have we included all the provisions that we need to include in the balance sheet? Have we captured and described the relevant risks in the notes? When we did the impairment test for the company, have we considered the risk scenario or have we considered the optimistic scenario? That's these are big differences. Do we use criteria for materiality with external auditors? Is that aligned with our risk perception? And so on and so on and so on and so on. I can kind of list non-stop, but literally every single department that you look at, for example, budgeting is another one. Which macro forecasts are we going to use for the budget? Are they risk-adjusted macro forecasts, or are they averages? Which contingencies are we going to include in different budget figures? Are we certain about some of the next year forecasts more than we are uncertain about some others? How do we capture that difference in uncertainty in the budget? All of these are examples of finding a home for risk analysis, because what this means is that now that we've taken care of ERM, and because ERM can be automated by AI in 5 seconds. So once we've kind of taken care of that, the real work begins, and this is what I call risk management too. The real work begins by finding different homes for risk analysis and then creating a separate methodology for the contract, separate methodology for the project, separate methodology for the budget, separate methodology for treasury, separate methodology for the strategy department, separate methodology for the other activities within procurement department, for the IT department. How do they prioritize changes to the ERP system? All of that can become risk-based. And I think that's the ultimate objective of the risk team, is finding the most high priority homes for risk management and integrating slowly and surely into each of these directions. Taking the time, because it's not trivial. For example, new vendor accreditation. Procurement is doing something, and compliance usually involved, so they do some sort of vendor accreditation. But double checking which criteria they're using and how their criteria is weighted, doing some back testing to figure out whether they actually misqualify good vendors as bad vendors and bad vendors as good vendors, double checking that and making sure that they are actually risk-based, making risk-based decisions as they promise. That's also a piece of work that risk team needs to investigate. So there's a lot of places where you can find value for risk management, and I think that kind of leads me to my conclusion is we can automate the boring stuff, and we should hopefully then find enough time and resources and capacity, our own capacity, to focus on the most important, most pressing priorities within the organization. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really even matter where you start. It's the end game is moving your organization to be more risk-based, risk-aware, risk-based. And it doesn't matter if you start with procurement, or you start with project management, or you start with treasury, or you start with budgeting, or you start with some specific tiny operational decision. For example, one of the decisions I started was, do we need to insure rail cars? We had a big fleet of rail cars, and we had to do some calculations to figure out, okay, given the uncertainty on how many incidents we can have, given the uncertainty associated with the losses we can sustain in each of the incidents, given the physical damage and the liability implications, what's the conclusion? And for us, by the way, conclusion was we should not insure. Given the price of the insurance and the actual underlying risk, we actually shouldn't insure this risk. We should actually keep it. So it's a fascinating future, I think, for risk managers, going around the organization and trying to find the home where there is an opportunity for immediate, direct, and very tangible savings. I forgot to explicitly mention that, but insurance is one example of this home. I bet most insurance policies on the planet are disconnected from the underlying risk. They are kind of, cookie cutter standard practice. Sometimes they are connected to some high level risk engineering work. It's pretty sad when the risk engineering work is not even done on site and it's kind of done remotely. But most of the time, the insurance policies that I have seen and I have reviewed, I found that they were actually completely disconnected from the underlying risk. And that's exactly what I'm trying to say, is that in those companies, the risk managers didn't find the home in insurance, so they didn't connect the underlying risk to the coverage. So Alejandro is asking a very interesting question. Should these different homes or applications of risk management be established by the C-suite in the policies? And there's really kind of no answer of yes, it should, or yes, or no, it shouldn't. My answer is it really doesn't matter. If you, for some reason, feel that it would make it easier for you to get some mandate from the executives saying that we want you to focus on procurement this year, and then project management next year and then operations the following year, then so be it. But you really don't you don't really have to formalize it. If you have a good relationship with head of compliance, then you can just agree with the head of compliance that you're going to do something together to make vendor accreditation more risk-based or better account for potential uncertainties and risks. Usually what happens in my life is I would speak to the people on the ground, identify these little homes, and then put them in my strategy for the next year, my risk management rollout strategy, and then get the executives to commit and agree that, okay, they share that these are the priorities. And most of the time, the CEO, the CFO would come to us and say, and by the way, I'm not happy how risks are captured or accounted for in the particular process. Why don't you include it in your activities, and work with them, agree methodology, and make sure they implement proper risk-based decision making. So I think these are the two big things I wanted to share. AI, the basics. Start looking for much more valuable things for risk management, and that's basically just finding a home. So any more questions, any more thoughts, please share. Don't forget to subscribe at the 2024 riskawarenessweek.com. We're keeping it very sweet and short this year. Most of the workshops are 30 minutes plus or minus, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I have enjoyed working on weekends and nights trying to put it all together. And good luck in challenging traditional ERM stuff and automating it out of the way and slowly moving towards risk management too, or what I call risk-based decision-making or decision-centric risk management. Call it whatever. It doesn't change the fact. The one thing that I want to quickly mention before I wrap up, by the way, ask questions and ask questions in the chat in the meantime, because I'm going to wrap up soon, because the next workshop is starting in 2 minutes. Ricardo is making a good point that C-suite is helpful, but let me re-emphasize just one important point here. The objective is not to find all the different homes on the planet. The objective is to find just one home, deal with it, then move on to the next home, then the next one, then the next one. Depending on your shareholder expectations and your executive expectations. For example, it took us months to sort out just procurement, months. But in another company, it took us a couple of weeks. So it really is there's really no rule or perfect scenario. It's just find a home, fix it, find a home, make it risk-based, find a home, make it risk-based, and then you have this collection of risk-based processes within the organization. Letty is asking, how important is risk culture in embracing AI? As always, risk culture is important. Full stop. It's just it's more risk awareness, just being open-minded, being transparent, or being comfortable about being transparent. So it's a huge challenge, and maybe we'll do a separate workshop on risk culture, because on one side there is no mystery with risk culture. I've literally have a guide, and if you're on the website, if you're on the conference website, if you go to look up, it says practical guides, and if you click on it, there's a guide on risk culture. So there's no mystery to risk culture. We know literally you do these 10 things and that's it. You're gonna have a good risk culture. And if you don't have good risk culture after these 10 things, then you're probably better off resigning, because the organization is toxic, is not really going to be risk-based. So there's no mystery around risk culture. I think it's done and dusted. It's settled. We know exactly what needs to be done. The reality is it's super complicated. It's time consuming. People are very slow to change their behavior. They're very slow to become transparent and honest about risks, because it's against human nature to think 3 steps ahead and prioritize risks properly, and people don't really grasp the concept of probability. So there are a lot of challenges. So it's super simple to do, super complex to really get to some sort of meaningful results. But it's one of the things that we always work on. So like any department, we have priorities and different tasks, and risk culture is just like priority number. It's not priority number 5. It's like 5th bucket that we have to think about and work on. So hopefully I've answered your questions. Enjoy the rest of the Risk Awareness Week. Have fun. Always don't be shy. Ask questions. Write in comments. Just be proactive and talk to each other in the comments. You don't just have to talk to the speakers, and speakers will be responding to your questions in writing. So thanks everyone.